right, let's
We'll
go.
let people file in.
Woo!
Yeah, well,
There we go.
we're chatting away. Good
Welcome to the
background.
Two people.
welcome to the warm-up show.
the.
That
John,
light went off
Martin, and
again.
Stephen, welcome.
People are pouring in. You know, it's good. It's warm here, and I'm going to talk in U.S. temperatures for a moment. It is 91 degrees here today.
That sounds like a lot
91.
when you put it that way.
Doesn't it?
Actually, it is a lot. Let's be fair. That is a lot.
What's that in Celsius?
I don't know. What is that in Celsius?
30.
Well, 80 is around 30, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's going to be around 30, what,
It's
3,
hot.
34?
So it's really hot.
Yeah.
It's going to be about 34 degrees, and then I'll tell you, once we're done this, I think I'm going to take the children and jump right into the pool.
Oh, just rub it in. Mind you, we've had a lovely day here too. We're good.
Hey, you know, the thing is, Kevin, the pool isn't heated, so it'll be like about 80. It is currently what time in the morning?
Oh, it's 5. It's not so bad for me. It's worse for Yuki. Yuki's got it worse.
What time is for you, Yuki?
3 a.m.
Oh.
3 a.m. This is it's almost zero dark 30. It's definitely the hour that just if you're starting work at that hour, it sucks. If you're finishing work at that hour, it sucks. If it's a screaming child in the middle of the night, like it was for me, it sucks. Is there anything good about 3 a.m.?
Sleep.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Great answers. Sleep.
Isn't 3 a.m. when you do your best work in the grading suite?
Oh,
Yeah. But this.
There's certainly no dawdle. There's certainly no dawdle at 3 a.m. You're just like, nope, that shot's good enough. Let's move on.
That's in my diary.
I used to
Sorry.
have the worst shift of all time, and that was 4 o'clock in the morning until 2 in the afternoon.
Wow.
That was awful because you could see what I graded at 4 in the morning, and it was just all the color had all sort of leaked out of it and everything. And then you could see what was done at 10, and then the color was slowly creeping into the picture. You know.
That's
I think it
fantastic.
should be permanently set as render time that time in the morning.
Yeah.
Agreed. But yeah, I think it's just as we begin to get started here, we let people file in. I just think it's kind of a neat idea that we did the last one at, I believe it was noon East Coast time, US.
Yes.
And today we're doing it at noon LA time. And I think we're going to just slowly creep them to eventually force me up at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm East Coast US. Just to be fair to everybody.
Make that. Yes, definitely.
It's okay. We won't get any children in. We in the pre-show, we in the pre-show here had one of my children come in because she heard Daddy on Zoom. Right, and I think it's 5 after the hour. We should go ahead and get started. So today we are, of course, back doing another webinar. I want to go ahead here. I want to do a quick screen share because today we are doing the, ooh, I hate that about Keynote. Keynote just blanked out the rest of my screen, but that's okay. We're gonna do, ooh, gotta do it the real way. There we go. Sorry about that, gentlemen. We wanna hide that. We're gonna hide this. We are meeting the ICA today. We're gonna talk about Craft, Tech, Create. I'm Jeff Greenberg. I'm your host today. With us, we have Diego. Wave your hand, Diego.
Hey,
Blake.
I'm here. How are you?
Yuki. Simon. Kevin. And Warren Eagles. We've got the ICA crew. Thank you all for joining us. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to just start with a little, let me come off the screen share. Before I tell you what we're doing today, we're going to just take a little bit here and just hear what everybody's up to. Aside from it being 3 in the morning for Yuki. Anybody want to go first?
I'll go first.
Yes, sir.
I've actually been quite busy grading because I haven't been traveling as much, and there's actually been a fair bit of work, a little bit of like COVID lockdown related stuff, small crews, 4 crews. There's a few ads that way, a little spec music video thing, and a doco. So it's not been too bad, but it's loads of bits and pieces. You got to sort of really juggle more than I did before. So yeah, it's been fun.
I bet won't suck when we get back to being able to travel. I'll be very curious. I thought, have any of you traveled yet? I mean, Simon, I know you flew all the way back, but have you left where you are?
No, I never. Always stay where I am. I had a weird flight. I had to, for visa reasons, travel from the States about 3 weeks ago to London. And there were 30 people on a 350 people plane. So
Wow.
this is how travel used to be, didn't it? Wasn't it in the heyday? No, nobody in security, nobody queuing. We kind of ambled on the plane, and there was no big rush.
I bet you got all the drinks really quick.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And you can fall asleep in 3 chairs.
Mm-hmm.
No, they made them all sit together. They made them all sit together.
For efficiency reasons, yeah.
I'm sure. What else? Let's go through everybody else. Let's go alphabetical. Blake, tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
I've got some grading jobs coming up. Also, I've got an on-site training class next month in Luxembourg. And so I have to travel for that one. And a lot of Zoom trainings. And so it's keeping me pretty busy. Yeah.
How are you doing that in Luxembourg if it's on site and everyone is not sitting next to each other?
Oh, we just kind of space them up a little bit, and so it's okay then. Yeah.
Like the cinemas.
Yeah. it's only about 6 people, so it's okay. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Brings us to Diego. Talk to us. What are you up to?
Okay, right now I'm teaching color lessons in the morning. And I'm reading and studying a lot about post-production in the cloud and remote post-production. So soon I will share you guys an article about remote post-production and cloud post-production in Spanish. But I mean, probably they will translate it, I don't know. But it's a really interesting topic.
It sounds interesting. I'm dying to see the English translation.
Warren can help me.
Absolutely. Kevin, what about you, my friend? What are you up to? How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm actually doing really well. Haven't done any traveling, and I haven't done that much grading of my own. I've been running 2 live virtual classes a month, so I have 2 more coming up next month. I'm going back to the Resolve Color Matrix and Looks class next month, so that's starting from the beginning of my color sets. And then I'm going to go back to Color Science and HDR in August. So that's been running. And then I've been doing quite a lot of private training and consulting sessions across Zoom. And that's been going really well. Sometimes it's helping people with their first or an important project. Sometimes it's a mixture of grading and training. So that's been really fun. And in fact, I'm hoping to continue doing a lot of that even post-COVID, because it's very efficient. It's much more efficient than spending all that time on a plane, even if you do have a row of seats available to you. So that's been good. And yeah, and then testing some kit, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah.
Outstanding. Mr. Walker, it's good to have you with us this time.
It's great. It is good to be with you. I've been spending a lot of time in exactly this position, clicking and then repeat. And it's funny you mentioned about the remote training, Diego, because so many places that we typically train, to rewind a second, I'm director of training at Maxon, and so I have a team of people that do the training for me. I used to train, and now I've been elevated to the level of my incompetence. Isn't that how it works? But we've been finding that so many facilities are working remotely. They're using some of those tricks you are going to be sharing with us soon, Diego, to cut open a tunnel via VPN so they can protect their IP and so on, and then fire up the machines actually in the studio and be able to render and export. And everyone is secretly quite enjoying the lack of commuting, as far as we've seen.
Hey, Simon, what do they, Maxon, what do they make hard drives, don't they?
That Maxon, actually, you search Maxon in the UK, it's a cement company.
Yeah, that's it. I knew you were doing that now.
And also, there's another company called Maxon that makes guitar effects pedals as well. Maxon is a big German company that owns Cinema 4D and merged with Red Giant at the end of last year. And so I've been working with Red Giant for many years. And so we kind of all one big family and figuring out how to make all the software talk to each other properly.
Great. That's good.
And last but not least, Yuki, next time you get to go first. It's 3 a.m. Tell us about what's going on at 3 a.m. in Singapore.
Nothing. It's been, I mean, it's quiet outside, but I am
3 a.m.?
on my, yeah, it's at 3 a.m. I'm on my 2 weeks break. I just finished 2 projects. So hopefully another project coming in next month, supposedly, like some training or via Zoom as well. Yeah, it's been picking up.
Outstanding, outstanding, gentlemen. Thanks for catching us up. It's good to hear everybody's seeing some level of solubility here. That's always promising, regardless of how tough any given economy is. We're going to go ahead and hear back. We've just been doing a quick little catch up with the ICA crew. We're going to be talking craft, tech, and create today. But before we do so, I want to mention that we're sponsored this month by our sponsors, but particularly X-Rite. They've kindly donated prizes for today's raffle. We're going to give them away at the end. We got 3 items we're going to be giving away. We'll talk about that at the end, including a probe. This is hopefully somebody out there who needs a probe. Well, somebody's going to definitely be winning one. And I think that takes us to his first piece of craft, and that's going to bring us back to you, Mr. Walker. We're going to talk about Magic Bullet Looks and how broadcasters and facilities are using it. So I'm going to dump out of my screen share, turn it over to you, my friend. Have fun.
The first thing I have to say, by the way, is in a room full of Resolve trainers, I wrote down on my pad, make this a cage flight free zone, because I've spent a lot of time visiting, well, obviously not in the last few months, but over the years, visiting places. So visiting big broadcasters all across the States, Europe, Far East, Middle East, and so on. And what I think is very interesting is a wonderful word called workflow, which is whatever they need to make it. So I've seen people balancing shots in Premiere, red shots, using the color balancer and then chucking an adjustment layer with looks on top of it and then just being happy. Because they've got a massive big computer that can render out really quickly. And so I've seen all various varieties of things. So all I really wanted to share was just a few examples of how looks specifically, and also some of the other tools in the Magic Bullet suite, I've seen them being used. And referencing what I said previously before, I work for Maxon, which is part of Red Giant. So I might have a biased view. So I'm trying to make it observational rather than anything else. But I mean, these still, I think it could be useful routines.
I will say, I'm a fan of Colorista. It has, for pure dead-on novices, a wizard to help somebody get a shot without knowing scopes, without having a shot, at least of having a semblance of a balance. It's not an auto button. I've always been really impressed, and I a lot mention and use their plugins when I do work in Premiere.
I'm going to ask you the question that means that we will have to take a shot, which is, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, yep. Excellent. Cool. So the thing I've seen more than anything else is using Magic Bullet Looks in things like Avid Media Composer and Premiere. And with the modern term of an editor now means you get to do the edit, the sound sweetening, the motion graphics, the end plate, the grading, everything, in some cases. So what has been happening is people have been setting up grades on the timeline inside Premiere and inside Media Composer, and then using that file and sharing it with their Resolve colleagues. So if I just pick up something like this on, oh, well, that was the worst training introduction ever, wasn't it? If you haven't used Magic Bullet Looks before, it's available as an effect inside a variety of hosts. Here it is. You can just drag it on an effect, and when you click it, you can then launch the Magic Bullet Looks interface. So I told you I'd retired from training, didn't I? Anyway, the point is with this is, apart from the fact that you have the ability to have multiple different tools to create different grades and so on, the idea is that you can then share these and create presets. So we do something really simple, like create a lens vignette, and just move this around here, create a lens vignette. There's interesting things about looks. I know we're not playing cage match, we're not playing looks versus resolve and all those things, but when you're working really quickly, if you could do something like protect the highlights inside a simple little lens vignette, so when you drag it around, it's not necessarily making those highlights really dark. When you're trying to come up with multiple different types of looks in front of your producer, these sorts of things can be really useful for setting up a kind of a treatment. So even if we go, there's only one grade, isn't it? I have to do this. There we go. Move the shadows to slightly opposite warm. There we go. So pretend that is an amazing grade. Now, if you save this as a preset, then you can have a amazing grade. You can share this with your Resolve colorist in a node or on the timeline in Resolve. And what I've seen is that there are many, many different edit workplace stations or edit suites in any particular broadcaster. But for every 10 or 15 suites, there's probably only 1 or 2 grading suites. And so the poor old hapless colorist has got a lot to do to keep up with the turnover, if you like. And by the way, if you do save a preset, this is where all the presets hide out and looks. You can make your own custom ones. So if I just go down to custom, here's that amazing grade that I just made. And inside looks, if you jump into the view presets folder, this is where they live. And any preset, here it is, put it in custom. These are tiny little presets that are, they're binary. So you can go cross-platform, cross-system. So you could save this inside Media Composer, and then your avid colorist can then pick it up and then use that as the start for their grade. Or, as I've seen many times, and forgive me, everyone, this will make your blood boil, they could just use that and run it out and broadcast it because it was set up on the timeline. So, I mean, sometimes something simple, that's all you need. But sometimes it's just the start or something to match to at the grading stage.
One of the things that I've used before, and I've taught a bunch of clients within Media Composer, is that skin overlay feature, is some of the skin protection, both in Magic Bullet and Colorista, which is just absolutely exquisite for the people who don't have the time to pull, really good layers and the like. It's such a sweet little switch in the tool.
It's almost like I've sent you a script, Jeff, because there's another tool inside Magic Bullet that's quite useful for this sort of thing. Here we go. I'm trying to not make this a product demo. This is things that I've seen people use.
Oh, hold on. I want you to know, Simon, I want you to know that I was working with a client right before COVID, and we were like, you need Primat from Red Giant, and you need this because while I'm going to teach you color will exist everywhere. So we did Lumetri for a day, and then we did a day of Magic Bullet, Colorista, and Cosmo. And these are people who are never going to spend the time, money to go to Resolve. They have too fast turnarounds, and they don't have the timing and their budgets for it. It's always what's the best tool for the client, and color is what the ICA cares about, not just Resolve. So if I were to go to Kevin or Warren's look class, you should know that the concept of how to think is what's critical, not necessarily just, oh, you're driving Resolve.
Absolutely. And it's the timing of it and the iterations that you can put together. And I've opened up the effects panel inside Premiere just to show you Cosmo is this tool on this shot. This is what it's supposed to do. When you throw on Cosmo, let's just reset this, you can sample a skin tone. Here we are. And then typically you do a skin softening. Or a smoothing. And so when you smooth the skin, it then takes anything which is within that selection that you sampled. So anything which isn't gray here, then is being smoothed. That's its general job. This isn't what I'm going to show you. This is just to give you some background on this. And also, by the way, It's also useful to set up a mask, etc., so that if you've got a situation like we have here, where the hair color is very similar to the skin tone, then you're isolating it. You know, pretty standard stuff, but it's worth just pointing out that some of the host tools can get you some of the way there. Now, what I thought was interesting about this is the series of just quick little adjustments that are inherent within the effects that you don't actually then necessarily have to use. So for example, in here, we've got the ability to do a quick little skin colorization. So if you're shooting under certain lights, which makes the skin seem slightly yellow or slightly pink, and then you can just, or too green, you can just quickly adjust a single slider because you've done the work of automatically sampling the skin tone with the sample button. And again, this is just background. I haven't shown you the cool thing yet. I think the cool thing is using these tools without or against their particular design use. So on a shot like, well, here we go. So in this, just really quick example, this is the original shot. And I'm adding with Colorista just a little bit of contrast, which is bringing up saturation of the slightly reddiness on his nose. Now, it may be important for our character here to have equal skin tone coloring spread across his face, or it may not, but let's pretend it is in this example. A nice thing about Cosmo is that you can set the skin smoothing to 0 and then use something like the skin color unify to actually take a measurement and average that skin color out over all the samples of the area that we selected. So just to remind you, we're doing a skin selection, just clicking the I button generally to grab an area of his face. And by the way, you can tweak these like so. And again, this is how I've seen people use it. They've not used it for skin softening. They've used it to skin smooth at 0 and then just to adjust the skin color unify. So here's the before and after. So just a really quick balancing to just bring those colors and smooth them out across the face whilst you're on the timeline without having to necessarily load into color mode.
Simon, Warren, can you just remind us the difference between Colorista and Magic Bullet looks and sort of where they fit?
That's a good idea. Yes, I can absolutely do that. The interesting thing about Colorista, or the difference between the two, let's say Colorista is a series of controls inside a panel that are keyframeable. And so you can then change different settings and luma and chroma values, as well as changing specific individual colors with a hue, saturation, luma selector.
And is it just a plugin or is it standalone software that you could just run on its own as well?
It's a good point. It's a plugin. So all these tools in Magic Bullet are plugins. And if we add looks onto this same clip, the difference is that looks has got its own interface. And this is the same interface that you'd find whatever the host.
Okay.
So even if you're in Resolve, you'd have the same host, the same interface like this. And I've seen people on sports shows panic because one week they're working in Premiere, and one week they're working in Final Cut 10, admittedly not on as many sports shows. And then many times they're working in Avid. And then them having to jump from one to the other. Some editors are fantastic at doing that and know the different changes in the software like the back of their hand. But some are much more experienced in one, but they're expected on day one to actually get it working. So to be able to jump into a particular interface and then have the comfortability of, oh, this is how I go. These are my usual tricks. This is where I grab a tool or grab a preset and then adjust that. And then be able to get something done or get something to show the producer. That's quite a useful technique.
Right.
Since we're here, by the way, I just wanted to show you another thing too. Let's just not delete my entire clip. What I wanted to show you is in fact, let's just make sure we just got Colorista here. One other thing I think you alluded to earlier on, Jeff, was what if you're not a colorist? What if you don't have training in color? And there's a nice little trick inside Colorista called the guided color correction panel.
I've actually used this as a beginning step, Simon, to teach like color, and we go through like the morning of our color class, and we come back and we look at this, and it reinforces everything I just taught. It's such a nice little wizard.
I'm glad to hear that. I really am. It's an interesting way of taking you through and visualizing things that you wouldn't necessarily either think of visualizing, or you might have not had that thought process because you might not be used to it. So like you say, to do it and then to look back and see how these colors are building up. So it's like a 7 or 8 step process. And it guides you through the different levels, even things like, what was this shot on? And these screens begin to set up the software and make the adjustments inside the panel non-destructively according to your decisions. So you might know that it was shot flat on a flat profile, or you might know that it was shot log, or as most of the sports editors I know, they haven't got a clue what it was shot on. And in fact, it's probably the transcoded one, actually. So that I know somebody who regularly shoots on red, but then transcodes everything down to 8-bit for the sake of saving space on the servers. So that's a whole other conversation, I know, but anyway. So if you click I don't know, then the software is going to guide you through these decision-making processes. Simple things like, how much can I crush the shadows before I start to get clipping? And they're giving you a visual indicator, and even the software shows you the line at which it thinks that you're going to start to clip. And bearing in mind, when you're doing things like this, you're balancing a shot rather than getting up with the final grade. So if you're balancing many different shots from different sources, like say something from the 1970s with something that was filmed last week and the various clips from the archive, then this is a good way of kind of bringing them together. So things like the black levels.
Cool.
And
that's
white
good,
levels.
isn't it? I like that.
So I won't just talk through everything through it, because in fact, it's easier to do it than actually talk through it. But just in general, as a concept, this is useful. With white, black levels, as well as separated midtones. So you can then begin to see how important those midtones are, where they should be in reference to the previous shots you're working with. Same with the contrast, and we're not being distracted by the saturation either here. So here's the histogram that the computer thinks you should be using, and then but lets you make a creative decision either way. Similar with the saturation, you can easily be distracted by how much saturation comes off the camera when, I think we were talking about it before, how long at 3 a.m. when you're sitting in the edit suite and you've been staring at these colors too long. But so it gives you a good idea of where you're going with it. But what I think the most powerful bit here is the ability to tweak and use the memory scopes for things like which have blue values in them, like the sky, or something that's neutral gray that turns up in gray in the memory scopes. Red's kind of suggested as red, same with the greens. So it's those things to give you an idea of, are your colors roughly in the right area, with the same controls that you'll find inside the panel, and also the ability just to click and drag. I'm just dragging on the vector scope itself to kind of balance these out, see if I'm going too far. Here's the final, here's the before and after. And I've worked with this with here we are, here's the secret button, the skin tone. If you click on the skin tone, then what it does, it prioritizes that over all the other colors. And if you've got to match sports shots together, especially the skin tones of all types of values, all the skin tones that sit on the eye bar, as we know, those then balance together much more easily in this process. And so I found it quick to go through many shots and get a balanced grade together, or the beginning of a balanced series of clips before having to then work on it further. And when you press finished, it's adjusting the controls inside the panel, doing a few tweaks on temperature and tint and things like that.
As a fantastic, I've used it when I teach as this. I actually had the class walk through it, and they sat back and they taught me what it was doing, because they had really gotten the basic principles of color at that point. But it's a great tool for Premiere and does a little bit more guided help, especially with difficult shots. It's a wonderful tool. It's wonderful products from Red Giant.
Have I got time for really one more quick tip?
There's no way I'm going to tell you no, but it's 3:33. You know, we're half hour into it, and we've got a lot of other people we got to cover with.
Okay. All right. I'll do it in 90 seconds. Here we go.
Go.
This is something that's really cool. If if you need to denoise something quickly, and you're using denoiser, you can chuck it on, and I found that higher values work really well. Here's a quick before and after here. So here's the before with all that. Can we see that macro blocking? Let's just zoom into there. So that's the before, that's the after. So before and after. Isn't it great? Asking you to see the difference of macro blocking on a compressed feed anyway.
Yeah.
The idea behind this is that when you start scrubbing, when you're on full resolution, even with the frame caching inside Premiere, you don't necessarily get an instant reaction, or it's not too bad at the moment, but it's not necessarily playback quality. So here's my one takeaway if you're using denoiser. You can turn down the preview to half, just where it says on the playback resolution to half. And that's not going to affect the output, of course, but it does mean that you're going to get fantastic scrubbing, and it's much faster to be able to leave on an effect rather than forget to turn it back on again if you've turned it off to make the editing faster.
Great little tip.
Cool.
Thank you, Mr.
Nice.
Walker. I'm going to take screen sharing back from you. You can find Simon at Red Giant and Maxon. Of course, you can find him at the ICA. How you doing? It's good to see you. Tell us what you're going to tell us about.
Well, I've been playing around since I'm on my free time. I've been playing around with the Duet Display because I'm still on Mojave. I'm not on Catalina yet, which I think it has what it's called sidecar, if I'm not wrong.
That's correct, sidecar. Yeah.
So before that, I mean, I purchased the Duet Display to share my screen with an iPad. Okay. So this is the Duet Display interface. I mean, I think since a few versions ago, we have a new one that it's activating the iPad touch bar, because I don't have the MacBook Pro with the touch bar. So I just play around with this. And let me bring you back to my, do you see my box here?
We do.
Yeah. So apparently we have new toys. So in this touch bar on my iPad, I'm using an iPad Pro, first gen iPad Pro. I mean, I love to play with this because it turns out that we have this, and we have printer light here, which is awesome. Because let me see, I move my node to the iPad printer light, so I can play around. This is my brightness offset.
Just refresh, because it is early. I'm a bit confused here. You're driving your Resolve with the iPad.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Okay.
So it just automatically, when you switch to Resolve or Zoom, it will actually switch the touch bar according to what application that you're running now.
Okay, so many uses for it then.
Yeah, many uses for it, and we have the disable on this printer light. We can just.
And can you use all controls through a Resolve or any software like play, stop, and that sort of stuff? Transport controls?
Not on this one, unfortunately. Later on, I'll introduce you guys to the Element VS. I mean, that has the transport control on that.
Yeah, because I want to sit back on the couch with the clients and run things, stop, start things, do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is this something you've had to pay for? Is this a free thing, or you have to buy this app to run
Which one, the Duet Display?
Yeah.
Duet Display is, I purchased this a few years back at 20 Sing dollars, if I'm not wrong. It's about maybe 15 US dollars.
Okay.
But at the moment is on, if I'm not wrong, is on discount on Apple Store. On App Store, it's like 50% discount, if I'm not wrong.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty useful. You know,
Yuki,
playing around. Yes.
Yuki, we have a question that's just come in from Peter. What are you using to build the shortcuts with?
Which one, on the touch bar?
On the touch bar, I think, yes.
It's all built in.
Okay.
There's no customization at all. I mean, no, I don't need to build anything. This is all built in within the touch bar. I think if you own a MacBook Pro with a touch bar, you'll see the same function.
Yes,
It's
you
just
will
that
see
I
the same
don't.
one.
Yeah, it's just that I don't own a MacBook Pro. Fortunately, I own an iPad, so yeah, it works with iPad and iPhone actually.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, with the Stream Deck, I mean, I purchased the profile on sideshoweffects.net. It's about $30 US. It has all this profile built in, so I don't need to spend hours of thinking which one do I need. So I'll just purchase the profile there. Yeah, it's an awesome product for $30 worth of.
Elgato Stream Deck, and they got 3 models. You know, the thing where you just said you wouldn't buy this, you would go and build it yourself. I spent hours building some things myself because I'm just blown away. This is the 14915 buttons, and I just can't stop playing and customizing with it. It's just so much fun along those lines. And over the last couple of days, I've begun to really heavily use it in Resolve. And when I switch on my system, I'm just going to click through the Resolve. I'm not showing you my interface. I'm just going to click into Resolve, and this should switch over. Did you see it switch over automatically?
Yeah.
So I'm outside of Resolve, I'm inside of Resolve, and we're talking today about printer lights. I customize this. Now I'm going to show you this from a screen share instead, just because I think it's a little bit prettier there. Although, let's see. So let me go ahead here. Let me hit my screen sharing. If I can find, there we go, find our buttons. And I'm going to screen share my main screen. There's Resolve. And I'm going to bring up my Elgato Stream Deck. So this is what the interface looks like. And I'm just going to show you here my Resolve interface. And if you click this button here, you're going to get into your printer lights. And I built these icons using their online software, using icons I have. But you can see I can add and remove colors. You know, this is the standard Stream Deck. I kind of now wish I'd bought the XL because I can't put all the printer lights. I had to create another folder. So I had the other set of printer lights, so they're separate. I also built for Resolve, and I'm just really happy with a set of node interfaces. So I got my memory colors here. I've got some inside and outside nodes. This is just a really quick way to work. If you asked me last month, would I become so reliant on a piece of hardware? I would have said, no. You know, I've got my grading interface or two. I can do it from the keyboard, but I'm just blown away about the constant functionality because it's something I can feel. I can just reach my hand out, and I'm beginning to get some muscle memory with it. I really, at this point, I'm having a little sadness for not buying the big one. I'm also having some sadness for not getting the ICA. We really need the ICA to get a sponsor from Elgato.
Gonna say, Jeff,
definitely.
keep talking about it. You'll get one.
I hope to, because I have to tell you, I'm now at the point where I would totally have bought the 249, this set of buttons, just for full printer lights without having to move away. I'm not lucky enough always to have somewhere a mini panel, very rarely the full panel, but the idea that I can bring something small like this, it's cross-platform, it's fast. I'm just blown away by it. I'm in love with it.
Well, I'll tell you my story just quickly. I had to move the big panels away. I moved the big panels away because they were going off to hire to someone else. So I thought I'd do the job on the Mini, and I liked the Mini panel and it was good. But after a while, I wished I could have had one of those Stream Decks there because I was just missing too many things, and I'm reaching for stuff. So yeah, you got one. Yeah, I'm a bit late.
I'll let you know they have a free iOS application that works. I don't know if they have it for Android. My only criticism with the iOS interface is I can't feel. And that's, you know, one of the things when I first walked into Warren's classroom, I, you know, heard him talking about this Surface and going, my goal is never to look down. And that's one of the real beauties of the Stream Deck is it's real hardware-based keys. I begin to get that muscle memory. It becomes very, very fast. So I'm blown away by it as a piece of kit, so much so that nobody's endorsing me for it. I'm just going, man, I can't stop talking about it. And I'm going to turn it back to Yuki, so you can finish out a little bit with what the Element VS is.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually again using the same iPad, and on this one, I actually have an old Kindle Fire, but I have to they call it side load, so you can run Android stuff on it. To my surprise, actually, I looked at it on the App Store and the Google Play Store. It used to cost about $100 and now it costs about $9 which is about maybe $7.50 US. And on the Google Play Store, this one costs about $12 so maybe about $8.50. This is really cool because, like, I mean, I immediately bought it because it's like I'm a gadget freak. On this one, I actually you can choose which panel you want to use. Let me try to bring up the Resolve interface. So basically, I just need to run this and go to panel configuration and enable the pairing mode. And I can close it.
Yuki, you don't need the full hardware panels for this, do you? This can be standalone.
No, this is standalone. This is totally standalone. This is connecting by Wi-Fi, so no cable needed. It works on iPad or any Android tablet. Let me see if I can bring up this. Yeah, okay. So when let's say I want to do on the contrast. So I'll just turn. And let's say I want to change on the primary. This, I got the saturation.
Nice.
Yeah, the only downside about this is you don't have the physical feeling of the buttons and the knobs.
Yeah.
But for the price of that, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I mean, for colors that's starting out, this is a good tool.
Well, like I said earlier, what I would like to do is sit on the couch, sit at the back, sit with the clients and got their view, and then be able to hit play, stop, maybe somehow grab stills, which would be a reference to where I need to go and make changes without having to get up and go to my panel all the time. So I could see that would be totally useful for what I would use it for.
Yes, you can grab still with this. You can switch to the MF panel, then you can play back.
My biggest thing with all the touch interfaces, Warren, and I've spoken to these developers and a couple of the other developers, I wanted something that was chorded. I wanted something that felt like it was a piano where, you know, depending on me putting my thumb down or lifting my thumb, I'd go shadows, midtones, highlights. I've never seen anybody give me that sort of eyes-free functionality, but that's what I was always looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that will, that's obviously, and it's going to get people into sort of playing around with the buttons and what a panel does as well for $7 or however much it costs. I think it's a good thing to play with, isn't it?
It's a good thing to play with. Yuki, it's $349. I want to know, is there anything else you want to mention about these tools?
No, it's pretty useful. I mean, I've tried it on one timeline for a project that I did 2 weeks ago. It's totally different than having to use the mini panel, but it's a good tool for as a starting out the upcoming colorists.
Were you able to be fast with it?
Maybe you'll need to adapt maybe about half an hour just to get the feeling of the screen touching rather than the actual buttons and knobs. That's all. But yeah, you can be faster compared to using a mouse.
Right. Hey, Jeff, can I just say something?
Yes, sir.
Somebody just put in the chat, is that a porno movie running behind me there? It's not actually a feature. It's a feature film I worked on And it must have just cut to one of the raunchy scenes.
Right now.
So,
Right now.
yeah, I didn't want anyone to think it was anything. It's a real movie, but it does. I probably just picked the real. If I move my head out of the way, look, I just wanted to clarify.
We're just going to leave it on you for a moment here.
Can you move a little bit, Warren?
Let's move the show on. Eh?
Actually, let's move us forward. Let's talk a little bit about some OFX tools. And to do that, I want to turn it over to Blake and then Diego.
Okay.
Gentlemen, please go ahead, share your screens, talk to us a little bit about OFX.
Okay, should I go first? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Okay, so it's important to remember, before Resolve, there was also a program called Revival for restoration. And Resolve was actually born out of Revival. Then what happened was, in later years, they decided to integrate the tools from Revival into Resolve, and those became OpenFX plugins. So as you can see now, if I come over here and look at my
do the screen share
desktop too, yeah. So you should see that.
We're seeing no. Not yet.
Oh, wait a minute.
We're looking at
wait a second. You have to see something here. Yes. Okay. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a second. I have.
Hey, and that's it for Blake.
That's Revival.
That's a new plugin.
Let's go Revival.
That's called Revival. It's a new plugin that goes to black. It goes directly to black. We're going to go ahead here and switch this over. We're going to let Diego go. Diego, my friend, go ahead and take over until Blake comes back.
No, it's
Blake,
back.
you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, it was. I had to give Catalina required permission from Zoom, and so I had to do that. So now I can do that, and now he lets me in. Okay, so now I'm back in, and we say, okay, let's share that, and
that's better.
Yeah, so you should see my Resolve desktop. Yeah.
Yes.
You see that? Okay, fine.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so what we have over here is, as you can see, the OpenFX plugins. Now we have a section which is labeled Revival. And then we have automatic dirt removal, dead pixel fixer, deband, deflicker, dustbuster, and object removal. And then we also have patch replacer. Patch replacer is great if you want to take over reel change queues when you are grading or doing restoration of old movies and you've got the changeover queues at the end of each reel. Now, object removal is something entirely different. You can use a qualifier or you can use a shape to define the area in which you are going to remove from the picture. So what we have here is we've got I want to take this rock out of the picture. So with simple process, I just come over here, create a qualifier, and then I will just define the area by using a window here. And let's just come up here and bring that up, shrink it down, just take some softness out of it, move it over here, do something like that, and come out like that. So now what happens is the tool actually has to sample the area. And so I can make it a little bit bigger and just give it a little more to work with. Okay, do something like that. Okay, so now what I do is I take the object removal tool and drag that into this area here. And so before I do that, let's come over here and make sure, yes, that's what I'm looking at, good. Drag that into here. And now what I do is come up to here and select scene analysis. And then what it does now is you can see here that it's processing the shot. And then it goes pretty fast. And then you'll see the area replaced with a gray field now. So this is what we have here now. So then what we have to do then is we have to build a clean plate. And then voila, now it's the rock is removed and replaced with the water now. And then also we can also run over it and everything like that, and it's off. And then if I bypass that node, I can see there's the rock, and now the rock taken out. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips about how to use this? Anything you've seen and you're using it?
Yeah, I find that if you're going to use a qualifier for isolating the area, it has to be a very good qualification. If you have any spill or anything like that, then it's not going to work so well. Also, too, it uses a tremendous amount of computer resources. So what happens is that if you're going to do it on, let's say, 4K and 8K material, it's going to really slow your computer down. So you want to think about caching the shot then, and then you'll get really good results then.
Sure. Just to open this up to the rest of the ICA, have any of you guys, have you used much of this on a show yet?
No, never.
Yeah, I mean, VFX is something that generally the colorist is not usually his domain to actually work with. So we only
I get requests from clients for all sorts of stuff. Sometimes they're very siloed. They're like, no, man, I touch color, anything that needs to get changed, I got an effects guy for it. And then I meet a lot of people who are like the last one, and it's the client in the room going, hey, could you remove that? Or wow, we missed that, you know? So I just, you know, will temper.
It's a job by job. Yeah, I think it is. Right. Depending on the type of projects you're doing, I think, yeah.
So I was just curious where you've encountered it. Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah. I found it difficult when you have to track it or a picture moves. Then it gets a bit more tricky, doesn't it?
Tracking is not a problem, because what I do is I use a shape and then I track it. The trick is to make the shape a little bit larger than the area that you want to remove. And then once you do that, it works fine. The other thing to think about too is if you have a lot of moving texture inside the area, you want to think then about using patch replacement in there, because patch replacement will actually animate the contents of actually the shape you're replacing.
That's what the question is over in the chat. Was it looks like it replaced it with a still image. Can it animate the water? So it's doing a clean plate build essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you use patch replacement will animate the contents of it. And so those are the two differences there. But patch replacement, you are adhered to either a circle or a rectangle when you're going to replace the area.
Sure, and patch replacement is very much similar to, you know, clone tools, where this is truly trying to build a clean plate using its own
very similar.
AI.
Yes. Yeah.
And we should probably add in there that if you need something a little more sophisticated, then you can do clean plate and all of this in Fusion as well. It's just a little more complicated than doing it with the plugin. Yeah. But Fusion has some very nice clean plate tools.
Absolutely. Fusion is one that I think it'll be about 5 years before I feel super, super comfortable in it. But and I have a compositing background, you know, it's a great tool. It's just got,
if you look at this shot, here's a shot that I took in Africa, and I wanted to remove the elephant on the right. And as you can see here, that's with taking it out. Nice. Same shot. Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn it over to Diego to talk about. I believe you're talking about today the color compressor, Diego.
Yeah, we're going to talk about color compressor. So
maybe one of my favorite OFX of all time here.
Definitely, I love it. But before starting, I just want to say, guys, here I have my Elgato Strip Keys, and I use it as Yuki says. And also at the beginning of this lockdown, I have to grade a complete movie with my laptop, and I use printer light for everything, using the touch bar with the MacBook Pro. So it's really, really, really useful, really great. Okay, so saying that, I'm going to talk about color compressor. Okay, let me share my screen. There you go. Now you see my screen?
We do.
Okay, so now you see this beautiful girl, Colombian beautiful girl, is a friend from Warren. Warren met her here. Really, really beautiful. Okay, so the color compressor is a really great effects to compress color to a specific target. Okay, that's the main idea. Okay, it's perfect for commercials. You know why? In many commercials, for example, we have this beautiful Warren friend, and they say, okay, it was great recording and so on. But the problem is that we have a background. We have this pinky background. And then they say to you, hey, but the background, it has to be purple. And in that moment you say, okay, is that VFX? That will be a question. But I think these things, these small things, we can fix it in color. All right, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, this small like hue shift, we can fix it in color. Okay, it also happened, for example, in this case, I have this person, I riding bike, and okay, I have a red jacket, and then they say to me, hey, but we make a mistake. Okay, they didn't fix it on set. We have to fix it on post. And they say, okay, the problem is that the jacket have to be this color. Okay, so I found the color compressor really great for this, to compress one color to a specific target. Okay, that's the main idea. Probably you guys use that tool, you guys make qualifier, then you move the offset and so on. But I mean, this tool is specific for that. So let's make an example. For example, I have this shot, okay? I have this shot of a room. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to search here in the open effects, and I'm going to add this color compressor here, all right? Now I will target this color, okay? I will say, okay, we need to have this purple room. All right, perfect. Now I will move to Warren Friend, and I will make a small adjustment, okay? And I will say, okay, we need to compress this like pinky color to the purple one, all right? How we make this? The first thing that we need to do is we need to grab a still of this. Right click or click derecho, grab a still. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come back to this shot, and you're going to, before that, you're going to copy this effect. Command C. Here in the second node, you are going to press Command B, and now you are copying the effect, but nothing happens. All right. If you start pressing this, you'll see that the colors are compressing to the target, but we have a problem. The skin is going also, the sofa is going also. So we need to make a qualifier, a really fast qualifier. I will make it here. Let me move it here. I will press here, and I will change this tool to qualifier, and I'm going to make something like this. All right, perfect. Yeah, something like this. All right. Okay, now I have a simple, really simple qualifier. And now what I'm going to do is the next. I'm going to open my vector scope. All right, it's perfect. To move like hue shift and so on is perfect to see the vector scope. And I'm going to analyze a little bit the image. I'm going to say, okay, the purple in this image is here, right? The pink in my image is kind of here, all right? So what I need to do is to move this like pinky, this one, to the purple, okay? That's the main compressor. That's the main objective, and that's what the compressor is going to do. So what I'm going to do is the next. I'm going to open the wipe. There you go. And now I'm going to like make like a bypass. And if I look at my waveform, I have to move from here to here. All right. I'm going to select this node, and at first I'm going to put compressor hue. Okay. And look, take a look at this part. Look how this small part of the vector scope is moving here to the purple. Perfect, really, really fast. And now I can play a little bit with the saturation. There you go. And as you notice, I compress really fast the color, that pinky, to that purple, yes? But using the color compression and verifying the result with the vector scope. That's really important to check. Another tip of this is the compressed luminance is kind of bad, okay? Let me show it to you. If I put it so much, it's going to show, in this case, not so much, but it's going to show some artifacts. So I don't like so much to use it. I like more to play with the saturation and the hue. And it's a really fast and effective tool.
Yeah,
you know what's really funny,
isn't it?
you know what's funny is Simon earlier showed, you know, how he uses one of the red giant effects, I believe it was Mojo, to pull colors in. And the color compressor does that same thing for flesh tones. It does it for different backgrounds. It's a little bit more flexible version. But Simon, while you were watching that, were you going, it does the same thing as we were talking about earlier?
I was celebrating how I don't have to use a node to do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's interesting how it's a similar aesthetic or a similar concept that we find we come up against time and time again. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely had some overlap, and it's not that one's better or worse. You know, it's just the Resolve user invariably has to pull sometimes colors to match clients' colors, and I use it all the time on flesh tones, especially when it's mine, just getting myself a little bit evened out without putting on a lot of makeup.
But I think the point is,
yeah,
as colorists, sorry, we're having to dive more into these OFX panels to do things, maybe having to jump into Fusion to do a little bit. And that's just become part of the suite. It's no longer your lift, gamma, gain, and the secondaries and the tools you've got in that software. It's about utilizing all these things we have and say, yeah, I can do that. It's about being flexible and go, you know, I've got a tool for that. And it doesn't have to be the tool in the software. So like Simon said, it could be a plugin that you go for one particular thing, or these plugins like Diego and Blake have showed us. So I think you've got to get across all of these things.
Well, I mean, I'm spending at least, I would say 2 hours a week trying to play with other tools than the ones that are my bread and butter. And that's the only way, you know, education really works is, you know, the level of constant improvement. I think, Diego, not to cut short the orange one, I want to throw it back to Warren and Kevin just to mention a little bit more about our virtual classes. And then let's do a giveaway.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, perfect.
So thank you, Diego. Really informative. It's a great effect.
Yeah, for example, I use it many times in commercials. In commercials, it's perfect. When you have, for example, this beer, and they say, hey, the bottle have to be this color of the beer. All right, that's for color compressor. Yes, that's that really great tool to use.
All we need is a tool to fill the beer back up. Let's stop your screen sharing, Kevin, Warren. Talk to us a little bit about the new virtual classes from ICA. I'll do just the quick screen share just so we can have a slide for it. And I'll cut back to you guys after you start speaking. Oh.
There's a question in the Q&A.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see what that question is. Yulia asked, can we use remove for pimple for beauty shots? I'm going to assume that goes to you, Blake.
Yes, you can. No problem. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
there, that was nice and easy.
I mean, because, and also too, it's much easier with that because you just use a small window, track it, and you can actually use an interactive track with maybe about 2 points or something like that, and then just drop it right in there and off you go. Yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I think that gets us through any Q&A. While we're hearing about the ICA, I'll again mention we'll do some Q&A before we do our giveaway. So let's bring that up. Kevin, Warren, talk to us about the virtual classes. Gentlemen.
Hi, everybody. Cool. I've been doing some virtual classes, running out through Zoom. Did some with my friends at Able Cine last week. Went really well. Was good. Less questions than I thought maybe. At some stage you sit there talking away and wonder, are they still there? But they all are. I've got a looks class coming up running in Spanish time zone next week. So that's Thursday, Friday. But I think, Kevin, you actually did a class with a virtual machine, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Actually, the first virtual class I did was a real challenge because it was my HDR class. In fact, what happened is I had to cancel a class when I was in Italy. I had to fly back in the middle of a set of 3 classes. And we were going to go back and do the class in Italy, but decided that was going on for a long time. And so I ran an HDR class. And some of the students did have HDR monitors. Some of them had professional reference monitors. Some of them had cheaper ones. Some of them had just TVs, and a couple didn't have anything. And one of the students was in a situation where he was in lockdown with a laptop from his company, that had no access whatsoever. He couldn't add any software to it. He couldn't really get in and configure it for what we wanted to do. So he used a virtual machine. We have a partnership with Eclipse. If anybody wants to take a class and doesn't have perhaps a machine that's powerful enough, or doesn't have the software set up, or whatever they want to do, then anything, if you can run Zoom, then you can access these virtual machines. They all come with pretty intense graphics cards, and you can do the whole thing on that. It's just like you have a big powerful machine under the desk, only you switch it on and you turn it off, and then you say goodbye. And
there's an ICA discount from Eclipse there. I've just put a link in the chat as well. So they're doing something where you can get a discount on a virtual machine for any classes. So, you know, we're going that way, aren't we? We are sort of moving that way. So click on that link and have a look at about what those guys are. Jeff's available if anyone needs any questions.
Yeah, Jeff is a great support. In fact, not many people know this, but Jeff was one of the first ICA instructors back in the day, 10 years ago. So he's a good friend. They're offering 20% discount. They're very supportive in getting the setup, and we can set up the system for you as well and share that across so we can help you get set up. And it's very cost effective. I think to do a 6-hour day, to do a 6-hour course, which I'm running all my online courses are 6 hours a day. I can't remember how much that comes out to. But it's less than $15. I mean, it's very cheap for the day. And then you can hang on to it. You can run it a few extra hours to do some practice and some hands-on. And if you're using it on jobs, you know, you can use a relatively cheap machine while you're doing the grading. And then if I'm normally grading my stuff in HD. And then if you have to render it out in 4K or 8K, or you've got a lot of these OFX plugins slowing you down, you can just switch the virtual machine over to a beefier machine, pay a few more dollars for the render, and all your files and everything already in place. So that's fantastic. We love that.
It's an amazing way to work, especially in times of COVID, where it becomes an inexpensive way to get powerful equipment to learn and further your knowledge. What webpage should they go to on the ICA site, or should they just go to the ICA website if they've got further questions about classes?
Yeah, we've got a virtual page now on the ICA website that basically runs through what you should do. There's frequently asked questions in there about how long the classes are, and normally on the home page, the virtual classes come up exactly like they do for a normal class. It's good.
Fantastic.
And
I want
to
sorry.
Yeah, just don't forget that I've had about half the people, I guess, that are doing online classes say, oh, well, you know, it's not really convenient, or I don't really want to be in a class with other people. Can we not just set up a customized class for what I want to do? And so don't forget, if you have something specific, or there's a specific time frame that you want to fit into, or maybe you want to mix up 2 or 3 different classes, then we can do that just as easily. So do get in touch if you have something specific you're interested in.
And that's worth pointing out that that's any instructor in any time zone. So everyone's available to do what we're talking about there. So just reach out probably through the website. There's a little form in there you can fill, or just contact the ICA instructor as well. Now, Kevin, we've got some good news from X-Rite. Is that right?
Oh, hold on, gentlemen. Before we give away stuff, we got 2 questions I want to unpack. The first one for you, Warren. How does your visual class differ from the FX PhD stuff?
You've got much better jokes when I'm live in the class with you than FX PhD stuff, I would suggest. No, there's different material, probably newer, updated. That is now probably 2 years old at least, that class. So there's some similar crossovers, and obviously the way I talk and the way I think about grading has not changed in 2 years. It's sort of the way I do things and the way that's worked for me. So there's going to be some similarities. I won't say.
I'm going to though say, Warren, because you're too humble to say it. I think the real difference of doing stuff interactively is that moment, that spark when you're in a classroom that you just don't get when you hit play on a recorded piece. That the idea that you're working and wait, I'm getting something that's a little out, it's a little odd, it's a little different. And that back and forth between student and instructor can really just push you faster and harder. I think that's what makes live in-person training, even in a virtual manner, much more powerful than just a playback sort of training. I think that's where its power really lies.
I think you're right. And it's getting the students to have confidence to share their screen, and especially when they're with other people, to show what they've done. And it's a hard thing to do in the classroom as well. But in the classroom, I'll just walk around and look at people. But in the online class, it's good when people start using Frame.io, they upload a few of the versions, and then people start talking about it in lunch and go, oh, you uploaded that. Then you get that sort of communication, and then it becomes a bit more like the classroom thing. But people need a little bit of encouragement to do that, but it's just difficult to share our wares, really, isn't it? So, but it's fun when that starts to happen.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say the networking, even on the online classes, I think that's the big difference, is having 4 or 5 people in the class with you. They're going to ask questions that you won't remember to ask until 2 or 3 days later. And there's quite a bonding that happens. Usually the people in the class are going to come from different markets, different countries, sometimes different continents. And there's a great bonding that goes on there, and the sharing continues and contributions come in. So it's not just about the instructor. Contributions are going to come in from the experience of all the participants as well. So it's a great experience. I really enjoy the classes.
Yeah, and I will add that the reason that is just 6 people. I mean, if there were 20, 30 people, 50, that will be so hard. Okay, that's the reason that is 6 people, that the people can stop, can answer warrants, can make a joke, and they can log, and they can be a networking between the students. That's really a key thing.
All right, gentlemen, I want to unpack 2 more questions, and then let's do our giveaway, because we got 3 items we're giving away. Diego, Ashraful, and my pardon if I didn't do a great job of pronouncing that, asked, number 1, the color compressor, is it an OFX plugin?
Yes, it is an OFX plugin, and it's actually comes with the free Resolve. You doesn't need Studio.
You used a reference clip. Do you have to?
I mean, in most of the cases that I use it is in commercials. When I have a shot or something like that, and they say to me, "Hey, you need to put that color." All right, that's the reason that I use
like a Pantone color, right?
Yes.
You know, it's really funny, because I mostly have used it as a utilitarian. I'm trying to even out some grass. I'm trying to even out some sky or some skin tones. I've almost never gotten that Pantone question, but I now know where to go for it. I want to ask one more. Same person asked, Kevin, how many days are for a given topic? So let's take, for example, HDR. How many days would you feel is best covered for an HDR class?
Yeah, I'm just typing an answer to that one. So two days in a real classroom, I'm running as 3 days in the online. So the price is the same, but we're doing it as 3 6-hour days rather than 2 sort of 8 to 10 hour days. And that's working out pretty well. I will be in July, I'm starting again with the color matrix class. So that'll be 3 days, followed by a looks class. That'll be 3 days. But in August, I'm going back to the color science track. And so I'm going to do a color science and calibration in 2 days. So it'll be a little bit cheaper because obviously it'll be more of a demonstration and less hands-on than the real classroom. But the HDR class, that'll be coming back in August. That's 3 days. What color management, that's 3 days. I find that works quite well. We do 3 hours in the morning, we break for about 40 minutes. 3 hours in the afternoon, have a bit of a chat afterwards. Sometimes we don't get out until a couple of hours after that while we're chatting and answering questions and things. But 6 hours a day is what we're doing for 3 days.
Outstanding. All right, let's do our giveaway. We got 3 items we're giving away today. We're giving away, and gentlemen, for those of you who have some of these things handy, feel free to hold them up. We're going to be giving away a color checker. That's the big one. I'm going to hold up mine, and you know, interestingly, you'll see the green key right out on it.
Oh, well, it's funny that. Isn't it?
Yeah, we're giving away a color checker passport. That's that second item, which is a little bit smaller. Definitely goes in the bag with you. And an i1 Pro, i1 Display Plus Pro, valued at $299. How are we giving it away today, gentlemen?
I got one here, Jeff. Here you go.
Yeah,
Look,
let's
right
take
there.
a look.
Can you-
Let's hold that up.
look at that.
Yeah.
Can you see me there? There you go.
Yeah.
So this
Other
is
side.
this is from our new sponsors, X-Rite. Thanks for them for coming on board. And we're talking about Pantone colors and color compressors and things. And that's all well and good, but you know, you've got to have confidence in your display, and that's what they're all about. And for the DPs as well, that's what those color passports are. When you shoot those, that makes sense to us colorists back in the room. So we're pleased to have them on board. So we have some questions, I believe, which you guys are going to type in the chat. And the first one is to win one of these i1 Display Pro Pluses. Jeff, these are around $299 US, I believe.
$299 US. Yes, sir. Don't give that away first. Give it away last. Give away the color checker first.
Right.
Yeah, you always build up.
Well, we'll build
Always
the hype.
build up.
Okay, so this is for the color checker.
Color
no
checker.
Google, no Google allowed. Okay, for the color checker, can you tell me, this is an interesting question, in 2020, COVID 2020, what is the biggest gross in film this year in the cinema? Type it in the chat, please. First person who types it will get it.
CNN.
Biggest gross in film this year in the cinema.
NBC.
Keep going, it's not there yet. This might take a long time. Correct.
Sonic, Bad Boys,
Correct.
1917.
How are you? Oh, no.
Google is slow.
No, Stephen's got it. That's Bad
Steven,
Boys.
1917. Or
Bad
Sherwood.
Bad Boys.
No, Bad Boys.
Bad Boys.
Really?
Bad Boys Run Again or something it's called, isn't it?
Bad Boys for life.
Hey, Stephen. Well done. So
Congratulations.
Just, you can email me and I'll pass the details on to X-Rite. warren.eagles@icolorist.com. I'll put that in the chat. Great. So that's the first one. The next
Number
one.
2
Stand
is
by.
the
What-
color checker
Cheers.
passport. This is the one that you can put in a pocket and travel with you. You have no excuse to not be color checking, even when you're taking shots of your kids off your iPhone.
Okay, to use this is something that you shoot out in the field. Please type a camera that you can use this with. What camera can you use this with?
Said all.
All. Well, I think we probably get it all. It could have been anything. You know, you can use it with any
Could
camera.
be an iPhone.
So it could have been an iPhone, yeah. So
No,
it's not.
Hold on.
an
You not
elite thing,
could
it's not a
use it with
pro
every
thing.
camera. You not could. You
You
should
must.
use it with every camera.
Good.
Because at
Got
least
it.
if I have that, I can at least
Yeah.
have an idea of what the hell happened with the light.
Oh, yeah, and that's the whole idea about shooting. So well done, Cedric. Good work.
You say the
Now
answer,
for the-
Jeff.
Yeah, and lastly, so this is the big guy.
The big guy. This is the i1 Pro. This is the i1 Display Plus,
Which is good for
Pro.
HDR, up to 2000 nits. And the question for this is, in what year was X-Rite formed? I'll give you a clue. It's over 50 years ago. What year was X-Rite formed?
Got a 1958 here.
Straight in.
1950.
58 is correct. Who's that?
Manuela.
Somebody's done their homework there. I like that when someone's done a bit of research.
Outstanding.
Well done.
Manuela.
Outstanding.
Warren.
All right.
Eagles. Go, Jeff.
So let's just run the round. let's tell everybody where they can be found. I know, Mr. Walker, you should also mention the webinars you're doing with Red Giant. Let's start with you, Simon. Simon's put into the chat here, redgiant.com, the blog for where to find the free webinars that they're doing on both their tools and the Maxon tools. Blake, Diego, Blake, what about you? Where can we find you?
Okay, it's Blake at blakejones.com, and it's blake-jones.com. I also have a YouTube channel, which is called Blake Jones, How Do You Do That? And each video focuses on a specific resolve problem. And so it shows you how to tackle different problems that you run into.
Yuki, how about you?
It's yuki.ariandi at icolorist.com, or I have an Instagram, yuki.ariandi.
Fantastic. Diego?
Right, you can, most of my information you can find in Instagram is at that DYHAMA. I wrote it in the chat, it's better for you to check it.
Standing. Let's do Simon. I know I mentioned Red Giant, but you should probably tell us just what else you're doing for them.
Still on mute.
He's still on mute. He's unmuted himself.
There we go. There's been a number of sirens going past, so I've been not wanting to distract. No, it's just really more about the webinars. We've been doing webinars for all sorts of things, as well as color, for cinema 4D, from compositing. So we've got a whole range of them. So every Monday we do one. So that's what the link's all about.
Standing. I'll do myself before I put up the ICA slide and let Warren and Kevin close this out. My name's Jeff Greenberg. I'm Jeff at J. Greenberg Consulting. I'm also in most social media, Film Geek. And I mentioned that because I'm going to put a little link into the chat here. I'm going to be doing next week a giveaway for to see if somebody has got a question that I can help with in post with GTech. If you go ahead there and you click on that link, you can ask a question. We're going to do some recordings and punch it through social media. But I'm generally found at Film Geek. It's Film Geek on Twitter, Film Geek on Facebook, Film Geek on Instagram. And again, I can be found at J. Greenberg Consulting. I'm going to bring up our last slide, turn it over to Warren and Kevin to just close us out.
Hey guys, thanks for joining. We're hoping to do these probably every 6 weeks. I know you're all webinared out and we're just looking to get back to normal, but I think there's still value in it. And thanks for joining. I want to thank all our team for getting involved these silly hours. Great. Hey, Kevin.
Yep. Before the next Meet the ICA, I'm also running a color clinic. Color clinic is where you get to ask the questions. I've been bringing in extra panelists to answer some of those questions. The next one will be July the 3rd. It's a Friday. It'll be a little later this time so that we can welcome more of our US friends. And the theme this time will be viewing environments, setting up a suite. We'll be talking about calibration. We'll be talking a little bit more about X-Rite portrait displays and just generally, can you eyeball it? Can you do it with a cheap probe? Do you need an expensive probe? We'll talk you through the whole gamut of solutions. So,
You said gamut.
I said gamut because that seemed appropriate.
Gentlemen, thank you all for attending. Thank you to all of our attendees. Everybody stay healthy. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you have questions. Of course, we can all be arranged. We can all happy to come and teach you your local people or virtually. Thanks again for attending.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
This is the part where we all just kind of scratch ourselves.
Oh, there we go. Wasn't that amazing? Oh, what's happening on my screen? Cover.
I keep watching your screen behind you. I keep looking.
Yes.
It's a great example of focusing attention there, Warren.
It's quite a good movie, but I must admit, the sex scene did go on for quite a while there. I mean, even I thought the sex scene was a bit long in this movie.
It's a real scene grabber because you're not looking at you and whoa, what's going on over there?
It's,
Oh, that's the seam he's grabbing, is it?
Yeah, he's trying to, yeah. Hopefully hopefully they've got a sale, so it will be out there. Oh, there we go. Look. Easy. Are we still live? Are people still watching this carry on?
They're all working their way out.
These ICA guys, look, just hanging out, talking rubbish. All right, cool. So I'm going to wrap it.
All right, guys. Have
There
a
you
good
go.
day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sleep well.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you too.
Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.